and welcome to Instalock Duelist. And by the name, you can probably have an association, an idea of what the game is. It's to do with Valorant, and I've got four handsome faces to be bringing you all the gossip, all the news from T2, T3 to T1 in this Valorant scene. And I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Let's start off from the left of my screen. Kat, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What brings you to the show here today?
Hey guys.
Just a hey, there's no more? There's no
Nah,
like,
there's
"Cat,
nothing
I'm a
else.
caster"?
Oh my
Nah, no one wants anything else.
god.
It's okay.
Bro,
They already
okay.
know me.
Well, I've
Come on, think about it. I mean,
Wow.
I've got you. No, that you know what? That's all right, mate. We've got you here because a couple of egos in this
Wow.
virtual room,
nah,
if you will.
it's just me. I'm all
Catznator
the egos.
is he's a well-versed caster that's on the grind right now. Chad, give me something more than Cat, please. Tell everyone a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chad, otherwise known as Chad Lannis. I'm a well-versed caster on the grind.
Damn, I've heard that before. It's familiar. That's it rings true from somewhere. I'm also on the grind. And Dilly, you got anything else? Got anything else to
Just
tell
say
anyone?
you're a
Who are
well-versed
you?
caster.
I'm Dilly G. I'm a Valorant caster as well and best friend of Cuppa Frag. We're happy to be here
Wait a
talking
minute.
and hopefully arguing about some Valorant today.
Well, I was Cup of Frag's best friend.
Listen,
Not
you
after
both
that
best
intro,
friends.
you're not. Not after that intro, you're not. No shot,
All right,
buddy.
Cat,
No
we're best friends
shot.
now.
You guys are best friends, okay? As best friends unite probably should have been the game show's name, but either way, I am
That's
also
actually
a
fire.
cast. It's actually a good one, actually, off the cuff. I am
Thank
Cup of Frag, and you've heard we're all casters. We're here to talk, and the Banter Boys are back to just tell you what's going on in the scene. So let's start things off. We'll get straight to business here. We've got a couple of bits and pieces that we'll be talking about. We're starting off with T2, some T1 banter to come for the latter portion of the show, and a couple of rumors to get all of your rumor mill business in the mix as well for the rumor rendezvous. Starting things off, I'm going to start with you, Kat. I want to talk about LAN preparation. I want to talk about team experience. So we look at, for example, a recent LAN that you've cast at. And if people have heard of it or not, it isn't really relevant. What is relevant? There are some LANs going on in T2. For the team preparation, team experience, do you think that T2 are getting enough of that right now in the current standing of the ecosystem, or do you think like there's some more room for the seed to grow before it's in the right place?
Man, I think it's on the way. I think tier 2 with all these lands coming up. And then this whole year, man, online has just entirely been from third party. T2 this, T2 that. Like in the meantime, EU's going over. They're running Red Bull home ground. The T1 teams are getting stackered up. And we're just like throwing money at Sonics and Renegades here in T2. So all we've got, man, is tier 2 stuff going on. And these lands are going to be super sick too, because we've got tier 1 females going. Like they're going to be at Fullerton with his NSGs coming up, and then the Philly one as well. Dude, if you look at the attendees list, there are so many teams going. And I think like, ooh, our T2, man, it might actually be T1.
And that's the thing right now. I think that is the coin flip of a question that every caster asks themselves before they go to a cast is, what am I going to be presented for in the form of talent today? There's a lot of unknown teams. There's some known teams as well. Kat, great points to bring up there. You are right. There are some banger names going. I believe, and the rumor is sort of Knights have got some stuff in the pipe as well.
Wow.
That's just to name a couple of bigger venues that are going to be having some online as well as the LAN tournaments. Chad, what's your take on things right now? Are you kind of happy? Do you think T2 teams have enough opportunities right now to go all the way, or what's going on? What's your take?
I think it's really exciting because it feels like the gate's just been opened because we're suddenly like there's no tier 2 lanes at all for like all of
What?
2022 or 21. 2022 was around the corner. VMS showed up. NSG is doing two of their own just to round out the end of the year, and then 2022, like Kat says, like a lot more coming around. So far it hasn't been a whole lot, mostly because they just haven't really been able to. A lot of regulations, pandemic, all that kind of stuff. But moving forward, it will be really awesome to see. Logistically, it's going to be very tough for tier 2 teams to really make it out to all the lands. You need prize pools that are high enough to be like incentivized for them to actually get there. Will the climate for the competition be good enough? Because we even see in remote tournaments, some tier 2 teams drop out because like, we're not sure if our roster's ready for this, and we don't want to lose like Elo on VLR today,
ping
so we're going to
sucks.
not participate for this. The ping thing you can't argue on a LAN at least. So I mean,
It's
it's
true.
just some things that are like logistically it might be tough to really pull off a thriving tier 2 scene, but we're definitely seeing the makings of a potentially thriving tier 2 scene for LAN, which would be awesome to see.
And I think for me, like right from the heart as well, you look at CSGO, how long it took. It took eons. It took
Mm.
my lifetime, my adult lifetime. I'm in my 30s.
Literally.
And literally, I have
was in high
aged from.
school.
I was in high school, man, when this started. No, seriously though, I was like cat's age. I was cat's age when I started playing CSGO. And finally, it's got to a point where it's like, hallelujah, we are seeing opportunities. We're seeing the EU's opportunities sort of overlapping with NA. We're also seeing the collegiate scene start to kind of take off and have prize pools in there as well. So
Mhm.
crazy stuff that took 10 to 15 years of Valorant. You are so right. It's right there. If
Yeah.
you want a shot at it, if you have the motivation to get your foot in the door, you can kick down a door and do so much more. You look at all the teams we've seen grow this year in the T2 scene. I'm going to highlight one and then I'm going to give it to you, D, just to put some words in edgeways here as well. For FYB, they did some disgusting things at LAN, sure. E.g., they've been having a very busy year. Like, to be completely fair, they've had a quite a somewhat decent year over the past couple of results as well. If anyone else has got anything to chip in for E.g. in the FYB scenario, please let me know. But I was impressed with FYB. I loved it. Are you not on that boat? You're not on that freight train?
I
Spill the
mean,
beans.
no. FYB had a good tournament. They had a good tournament. They were
They did.
vibing too. They were heavy vibing. And definitely, there's a difference when you are a team. You're just a hodgepodge group of not free agents, but people having fun, not with one organization. To the sense where, like, if you don't win, okay, it's fine because it doesn't really matter. Your roster is just for that one event. But if you're EG, bro, they flew you out for this. You're by far the best team there. There's so much pressure. You have to win.
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw EG through the event. They were having a pretty good time to be the tier 1 organization there.
And it's one of those things when you get to LAN, like, it's exciting, right? You don't always get, especially in these endemic times, you don't always get a chance to be at LAN. So even for a professional team, I think it's a test when you do get sent there to stay focused, stay honed in on things. It's a difficult thing to balance because online it's a bit more forgiving, right? You can just roll out of bed and woo, you can just
Yeah.
jump onto your computer. But
Yeah.
at LAN, yeah, you don't really get that sort of forgiveness, do you? Dilly, what's your take from the T2 scene? And forgive us, we've got all so much to say and so much more to come here for the Instalock Duelist. What is happening for T2 right now? Are you happy with what these T2 teams are doing? And do you think they're going to be able to run the long endurance race and make it to T1 with the experience that they're gaining in T2? Is there too big of a gap? What's happening?
The $1 million question, for sure. I think a lot of these T2 teams, they've got a lot to be excited about coming up that we've talked about. And I think as well, a big advantage that works in the favor of T2 teams is the fact that, teams like EG, yes, they'll not be happy not taking the win at the VMS, but that was still a huge gain of experience for them.
Yeah.
If they're put in that high pressure situation again, they're going to come into it much more prepared, much more sturdy than they did last time. So I think the really big advantage that works for these T2 rosters is the lack of LAN experience for T1 rosters. It was touched on previously, the gulf between the amount of T1 LANs for EU teams versus NA teams is huge. And right now, the top NA teams aren't getting any experiences outside of that Riot stage. And then T2 teams on the
point.
flip side are building up experience where EG had people banging on the glass in their booth while they were playing. Like that is, if you can learn how to stay cool in that situation, you're probably gonna feel a little bit more comfortable on the Riot stage. So I think that's a huge thing that T2 teams can take away from this and look for, as this is an edge that we can use in these qualifiers. Granted, yes, the qualifiers all online up until a very, very late point in the process. But all that being said, the advantages, the exciting events that are coming up for T2 events, I don't see a T2 roster making a definitive leap from T2 to T1 in everyone's mind for a long time, for at least a year, at least for a year, if not longer, T2 players can get signed to T1 rosters and be additions to those rosters, but entire rosters will not make that leap.
All right,
What about
here's
flick baiters? Sorry, I'm just
no,
going to
go
put
ahead.
that in the air here,
Yeah.
right? As an example of, and to kind of, not to go against your point, Dilly, but just to kind of put a bit of spice on top of that. You're right. Not many teams. I think a smaller percentage, you put like 5-10% are going to move up. And I think you can even put that in context or comparison to soccer, football, NFL, CFL, hockey, whatever it may be, where the transition of a player going from an academy team on their way up, and this is actually something else that we were discussing as well. It can happen, but not very often. But Flickbaiters, a special roster, and that is part of the FYB roster, just to be to clarify for everyone at home as well. And VMS, by the way, you're wondering, what's this VMS to talk about? It's the VALORANT Midwest Showdown. Yep. It's something that happened at the Game Arena over in Ohio, and it was a smaller LAN, but there was a big turnout of teams actually for the teams that turned up there. So pretty impressive. But Flickbaiters, guys, why are they special? What makes them different for them to get more opportunities in the scene right now than those other T2 teams?
Are they different?
Marketability?
Actually,
I don't.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't really know. But the marketability, I feel like, came from Ethos, and Ethos is he left because he's signed.
I'm trying to pull back because that's part of the rumor rendezvous segment, essentially. Because,
Yeah.
but this is topical right now, so I'm going to talk about it. So, Flickbaiters is rumored to go to an academy roster, and that's only like half the team is going there as Ethos and Nerf, or Ethos and somebody else pulled out.
I think it's Tex. Is
no,
staying with
Tex is
Energy.
NRG.
Yeah, he's on the
Right,
main
that's what
roster.
I'm saying.
On FYB, it was only Ethos that was part of Flickbaiters.
Oh,
and he's the
only
one that
Ethos, got
stepped
you.
out because he wanted his
Oh, I
allies
get
to go and
Yeah.
get signed, because Ethos is signed to Energy as well
Yeah.
as a
I
content
got
creator.
Flickbaiters
So
confused
he was
with
allowed to
FIB.
play as like a free agent team and stuff like that. So he's like,
Mhm.
I want my homies to get to eat. I'm gonna step out of this roster and let them play.
Right.
But the rumor is that they're gonna go to an academy roster, in which case, don't know if they're gonna be able to go into tier 1 scene. Because
Yeah, that's
they're
not
academy
even
roster
T1.
listed.
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah,
thought that was
so-
locked down, that decision, and that shows how much. I know things go back and forth,
They
but
change
that's
so
still
fa-
within
yeah, it's
The
several
rumor
months.
mill, everything's changing like day to day. It's crazy.
Alright.
Yeah, that's the Valorant scene, isn't it? Right? I think T2
Yeah.
rosters change as much as the rumors change. There's more
That's
coming for the
part of the
rumors.
topic.
Don't you worry, we've got some.
That's part of
It
the
is.
topic too, is the roster's changing so often too, of like, how are you guys going to mesh when you go into LAN? Because you're going to have all of that like vibing of with each other. Like we went to Top Golf after a cast day one day. I think it was day 1.
Yeah.
And like the teams were like completely in their own cliques, completely.
Yeah.
But that you're so intimate with your team as in a professional sense, that you need to vibe so well. And that's one of the things you might run into an issue with in the LAN scene of like FYB and EG both had people just banging on windows and like yelling at each other after every round win. I mean, Gucci on FYB was like some round lost.
They lost, yes.
With like yelling at people and stuff. But like, if you're a player on that team and you're not vibing with that, and you didn't feel that from them before the LAN experience, and like on remote play, you hear it on comms, but you're like, in person, I don't want to be like that as a team, maybe. But then your allies like, yeah, mental edge, let's go. We yell at them every round. If you're not vibing together, that can throw off your synergy even in game, because your mental is kind of distorted. So that's part of why LAN experience is a big deal. It's part of why tier 2 teams maybe need to stop throwing around roster changes constantly. It's just a whole thing.
I think that'd be a good
I think
point.
even. Go ahead, please.
I think that specifically would be a really good point for a crew coming up in February for NSG Winter Champs Finals, because their team, if you remember Gucci's interview from 2 weeks ago, the man said vibe 1,500 times. And
vibe.
like you said,
Vibe,
banging on
man.
windows after every single round. And then this week, since they won again, we got an interview with Calm. And Calm seems like the calmest man I have
Super
ever
chill.
seen.
Yeah.
So seeing them on LAN together is going to be very, very interesting to see if that dynamic even works in the first place. Because right now, they are just running through all of tier 2. 3 NSG wins in a row now, which is ridiculous. And
If
That's so
that's
much talent.
that's the Duelist's point.
yeah, I was about to. That's my segue.
That might challenge tier 1, 3 NSGs in a row, dude. Maybe.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
And you look into that, and you look into not this last event, because honestly, while it was more T2 rosters, I feel like they're going to be less valuable in credibility for the argument I'm about to make. To against Lee's point, the fact that don't think T2 is going to be up against T1. If you go back to the bracket that was for playoffs of NSG number 8, you got Cloud9 White. You've got both Renegades and the Sonics, who we thought were at the top of T2, but both of them go down round of 16 quarterfinals to the Kansas City Pioneers, who accrue then 2-0s to get to finals. Andbox is in that bracket too. Complexity's in that bracket. None of those teams make it past the quarterfinals. None of them make it past top 8. And those are all teams that are tier 1 organizations. Andbox was playing in Masters closed qualifier events, and they're losing to teams like a crew.
So I'll say that for rumor rendezvous.
I think you bring up a fantastic point there, Kat. That even orgs right now, even the bigger orgs like Complexity, or you want to say even NRG. I know they don't necessarily have their biggest hand in Valorant right now, but there are teams that have just not proved that they're worth carrying the flag, carrying the baton, carrying the flame. And that's a hot take. This is a hot take I'll come right off the cuff with, but I think it's very true. And these teams are starting to be a bit of a revolving door, if you will. And that, you know what I mean?
A bit.
Okay, a revolving door, right? Let's just stamp that down right now. And
we're a hot take with full flames. It's going around circles, baby.
It's a barnyard burner, baby. But it's true. It's true. It's happening right now, isn't it? You can say from the whole of Valorant, it's not just T2. And that does bring us to another point of the T1 scene. So within what's going in the T1 scene right now, there are being some rotations in rosters. We've seen Sentinels as well. Man, I'm so upset about what happened to NA at Champs still. Like, my heart hurts. I don't think I've recovered. Dilly hasn't either. We've spoke about this. It's been a troubling couple of weeks, hasn't it, boys?
You had a Team Liquid jersey on Cass.
What was that about, bro?
Damn it, you caught me.
I'll call it out when it needs to be called out.
I like all teams and I collect jerseys. You know what? I don't actually have a Sentinels one. That was from my CSGO Ds, okay? I'm going to say I'm a liar. It's a Valorant jersey. It's a Valorant jersey.
As soon as NA was eliminated, full in on the Ascend hype train. Like, anyone that wasn't Gambit who was going to win, that is who I was rooting for. And Ascend winning. I mean, it's just the best possible timeline. The best possible. If Team Liquid's not going to make it, then Ascend winning, or like someone crazy, even crazier, like X10 winning is. But yeah,
absolutely
Ascend was the best
timeline if you're from
not
Brazil,
a crew fan. Unbelievable.
Well, that's true.
I guess my mention. Go ahead, Chad, please, Chad.
Oh, I was just gonna say that NA representatives were from like Anders on the assistant coach for Fnatic, and then like you can go South America, so it's technically America. Let's go, baby. And then. People that took out America was a lot of EU teams. So let's go non-EU teams. You can root for them. But yeah, I honestly was rooting mostly just for like an international grand finals, which we didn't technically get, even though CIS, EMEA, all that kind of stuff.
The reason, I guess, off of the T2, I go to the T1, and it's a broader topic, and I go right off the cuff here, is with the two teams that was also the two regions between NA and EU. What happened? What was the difference when they went to the big stage?
Dude, it's not even like a bad thing to say, because I think they know it too. It's all in practice. Like people were loving to say on Twitter, like, it's because they stream 8 hours a day, man. They're always on Twitch. Like, that's after practices, man. And I'm a firm believer, because I do like a lot of studies on just behavioral sciences of esports, because like player longevity, all those different factors. And I think that you don't necessarily need to practice 8 hours a day. If you're going to practice in a 6-hour block, it just needs to be concise. It needs to be very heavy focused. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that the problem is practice time. Like, the problem is just how they're practicing. Because if you are only scrimming NA teams and you're only scrimming what you feel is T1, even though our T1 jumped ahead way earlier than everybody else's did, you're seeing no strategies. You're not learning up until you actually get to the event. And then you have to scrim a team that you're going to play on the stage. They're not going to show you all their strats because you're going to play them.
No, exactly. That is the best point I think I've heard out your mouth regarding NA and the EU kind of battle and EMEA as well. Like, how does that yield any results? It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. It's like, so we're gonna run it down again, and they win over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think it builds this false sense
It's
of
just
confidence,
exactly.
right? So
Little
you go to the big
backhanded compliment there, by the way.
Gio had a very good
Loved it.
video about that, about the fact that Sentinels have been winning by the fact that they're just so mechanically good that they don't need a strat. That and
Yeah.
Shazam is
Yeah.
dude, the world's best IGL. Like his ability
Great offer.
to read and make calls is very impressive, but eventually, especially in a game like Valorant or CS that's very much heavily impacted by utility usage and compositional picks, if your composition's bad and your util isn't used effectively, especially onto their post plant, you're just gonna lose. And that's pretty much how it went. And it's funny because we have T2 teams that run some of those European compositions. Like most notably, TI was running Breach way before it was cool, way before you even started running it. And if you
Yeah.
get a team like that scrimming TI, now they know how to play it. Now they know their comp doesn't work and they don't have that problem.
Just shouts to Frizzy. He's not even on the roster anymore, man.
I miss Frizzy, bro. Gone but not
Godspeed.
forgotten.
Absolutely, brother. Godspeed.
I think a big part of the gulf between EU and NA, especially right now, though, that can't be understated, is simply. I think Kappa and I talked about it while we were watching Gambit in the finals, especially on Icebox. Just the difference in the complexity and depth of the playbook for a team like Gambit or a team like Liquid. It was miles ahead of Sentinels.
so deep.
It was. Yeah,
No, it's
Shazam,
100%.
great IGL. But where
No stress.
was the micro play?
No stress.
There
was
was
none.
so much micromanagement of the map from Gambit
Yep.
throughout the entirety of their tournament run that was 100% absent, and not just from Sentinels. We dump it on Sentinels because we expect them to be the NA flagship team. But where was the map
didn't.
management from Sentinels? You didn't see it. What you saw was heavy reliance on mechanics, heavy reliance on tens, and you didn't see that same map management. It came through in huge swaths of rounds.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
individual gunplay on individual gunplay, clutch it out. That might work in ranked. It might work in NA scrims, but you are so right, Kat. And I go right back to that point you mentioned. It just doesn't work on the bigger stage with a variety bucket where you're pulling out a number of the hat and it's a question mark. You don't know what to expect. Chad, you had some massive banger points on this as well with regards to the sort of the NA face-off versus EU as it appears on socials, as it appears on the internet. It is true as well. I know they are pretty damn competitive. Tell us, what's your take for the NA versus? What was the difference when it went to champs? Like, why did NA just get sent home, like literally on a plane?
Yeah, I disagree with like both Dilly and Cat on topic points that they put in there. Sentinels was not my flagship team going into champions at all. They had a very similar performance in Berlin. They showed no indication of improving from there. They added rockets, but that was pretty last second.
That meant nothing.
With an interview, Dapper in an interview early on in the tournament said he's basically a hype man for us. So he's not even like he adds some suggestions here and there, but that's basically it. Like that's not what a coach does, really. The coach like directs the team, not giving
That's a
suggestions, and
cheerleader.
hyping up your members. Yeah. So I mean, hey man, for the mental, having a hype man is useful, but probably more useful with a coach. And it's also on Gio's analysis that she did a great job on that. Check it out for sure if you haven't yet. But she talked about how he's a great IGL, but the problem is individual opportunistic success, and that's an IGL that is very good, but is very reactionary to things.
Yeah.
They didn't proactively go in there with a game plan like EU has done, and a lot of that comes down to practice hours, which Kat's point was that just optimizing your practice. Obviously, that is very important, but also you need to have the hours to really get in muscle memory and just download all that all that information. Like Gambit, their coach was like, "Yeah, I was bored. So now we don't have anything to do right now. I don't know what to do with my life," and just tallied up the hours. He said that
I saw this.
He did 11,000 or 1,160 practice sessions with Gambit in 2021. 1,160 practice sessions. That's averaging roughly 3 a day that you're doing practice sessions. Now, obviously, those aren't like we're doing 16 hours of practice.
Yeah, it depends on how long they are.
Right.
But like they're probably like 2 to 3 hours of practice.
Yeah.
But probably means that like they're taking like they're optimizing timing. They're figuring out time to take breaks, get some water, reset the mental, come back for the next like 2 to 3 hour block. And for this 2 to 3 hour block, we're just drilling executes for the team to get
Yeah.
synergy.
Yep.
Next
Yeah.
2 or 3 hour block, we're scrimming this team for like 1 or 2 maps or something. Next 2 or 3 hour block, we'll drill what we learned from that scrim. You know, like do that 3 times a day. That's really efficient. And because of the breaks in between, they take like an hour or two to break for like lunch or whatever. That's a full day. You can't stream and be that active if you're doing that. I mean, you're not like grinding 10 hours of practice. You're doing like 2 or 3 hours in 3 different blocks. So like whatever, 6 to 9 hours a day of actual practice time. But you have breaks so you can rest the mental, not burn out so much. But still, their 9 to 5 job is practicing day to day to day to day. It's not being a content creator.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
You know, that's not even a point I thought of until now, but there's going to be burnout. The burnout has to come somewhere, right? I think
And
as
the
a
culture
caster
burns
is...
out fast.
Go ahead, brother,
Oh
one more
my
time.
God. NA
Yeah, what do you
culture
mean?
burns out fast. It's,
Yes.
They do. It's just the culture of NA players burn out really fast compared to EU, Korea, things like that. We see that in other games too.
Go ahead,
5v5s.
Yeah, and then also I think this is an instance where we try, especially in NA esports culture, to actually make money and not just burn money in our organizational standpoints. And I think in order to do that, you have to make content. So you'll see a lot of the time, like especially Weeded is a player who's been having 50-50 results, but will get moved around to an org regardless because he makes good content and has good interactions. And that is very important. Like a lot of our T2 rosters, like whenever I like get asked for advice, it's like you got to do some sort of content, whether it just be like highlights from scrims or something like that. You got to do content because no organization's gonna pick you up just as a player, at least not in NA. And that's just how our region works, which is unfortunate and definitely, to your point, is bad for our teams in terms of practicing and definitely can be an issue. So like a very, very strong point. I also think in terms of what you have to play against also changes your practice. If you're a team like Gambit that's based in EU and you see so many different compositions, you're getting, not only are you getting a better structure of practice, but you're getting more looks, you're seeing more things, and you're adapting faster. Your meta is growing faster than an NA team that is seeing the same compositions and is winning in their region on their composition in their scrims, and then is losing internationally because of how they scrim. They scrim to win, they don't scrim to learn, and they don't scrim the same diversity of comps.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn the clock back for you guys a second to kind of really give us an insight into how much has changed. Whoa, going backwards here. Is 100 Thieves, Sentinels, they took dubs. They took dubs within the couple of years that Valorant's been existent. Champions, Masters, they defined how people thought Valorant was going to be, I think, for years. And especially in NA. I can say this as an English person as well. You're like, if England wins something or if anyone wins something, it's like, winners forever, go on, win. It's like the best team in the world. But reality is, things change. Teams change. Metas change. And I want to go on a focus on the side tangent before we do just head to the rendezvous, wrap things up here as well, is I think the meta, EU, EMEA, they've done so much homework. And not to regurgitate what you've just said there as well, Chad, but that's such an important point. I think that's the biggest takeaway that NA need to look at for 100T, for Sentinel, just name a couple, except just to sort of throw some in the mix too. You've got to have some variety in your strat book. Otherwise, you're just going to come up short. You're going to come up short. And Tens was so disappointed as an example of a player that is so damn talented. But if you put that kid in a clutch situation over and over and over and over and over again, there's only so many times you can win a 1 versus 5. You can't win those every time. Like, the percentage is so low. And that kind of pressure on 1 or 2 players is just unfair. I think that's something we didn't even talk about. But I think that's highly unfair to go, hey, you're going to do that thing you did last game. What? The Marshall no-scope ace? I can't do that every game. I can't.
Yeah.
8?
Yeah.
100%.
Heat
I mean,
from
currently...
Vivo Key did that. Yeah, he blew up. Sorry. Go ahead, Dilly.
No, I was just going to say what we're seeing, the homework that Kuppa is talking about, is the exact adaptation to Sentinels winning one event. Is you did the homework and they're like, what is going to outplay this play style, this individualistic play style? We're going to have to control the map. We're going to have to have Nats, the nastiest lurker of all time. And yeah, I just wanted to pile onto that because you're exactly right. Now the ball is literally in NA's court to do the homework and come up with the adaptation. Or, I mean, you gotta either come up with something new, or you gotta do what they do and you gotta do it better.
Yeah, and I can give you
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 examples to your point, Cuppa. We can go to Sentinel's last 2 games, that group decider and then the losers decider. Both finished on split. Both they ran NA meta, lost to raises in both opposing compositions. So like
Yeah.
a matter of not be able to change that composition won the day before, because the Liquid game was close. It was like 1 round differential from going to OT to ending the game, 13-11. That's fine, but I think the problem there is not the fact that they're not a better team. I think it's purely the fact that they're not playing a composition that's going to work against what they're being shown. At that point, I think it's just too late to change. Because even if you see it and you go, okay, this isn't working, and we're just letting teams get into sight, and we don't have an effective enough post plant, you still can't change it because you're playing the next day. What are you gonna do at that point?
Yeah,
and 100%, it's definitely comes down to readapting the meta and just not being so uptight about who you play. And then 100 Thieves, I think that rebuild comes directly from the fact that there's infighting and the fact they want to change and they're not allowed to, which that can get into rumors too. But I have a very set reason, I think, why Steel was moved. A very set reason. We can get into that in a little bit.
No, that's a perfect segue, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? We're not going to be like the NA meta and be linear. We're going to be dynamic and try and show an example of just go straight into the rumor rendezvous. So for the rumor rendezvous, let's start with that. I've got one to go off as well, and boys, if you've got anything to add, please do. Yeah. So still on his bike on the way out, is that going to make the difference to that 100 Thieves roster? Are we going to see them next year? Hiko's dropping 40 bombs all over again. It's right like the beta going into the normal seasons of Valorant. Is that going to happen, or is that just an excuse to be like, he was the problem, and you just kind of put him off to a different team? And you know what? I have heard down the
classic NA.
grapevine that still can be a tough teammate to work with.
Yeah.
Okay, very talented,
I
but
think
he
it's
has
pretty well known at this point.
Well,
Very
yeah,
vocal.
it is common news. It's common knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah.
he came into the game and he literally says, I know how this game is supposed to be played.
Yes.
I just need a team to pick
Very
me up to
vocal.
let me show the rest of you clowns how this game is played. And I think the issue comes from that roster splitting up, because people said, okay, they're going into LCQ, they're dropping Steel, they just performed really well. What is going on?
Right.
And I think it's the roster infighting going, Steel, please stop. You don't know what you're talking about. Get off your high horse, old man. We can play this game better. And the fact that
Let's
Steel
look
won't
out.
let them, please get off the roster if you're going to be a problem.
I think
Right.
honestly, he got really lucky that he had a demon of Asuna on his freaking team
Yeah.
and a clutch god of Hiko. Like, if they didn't
Yep.
have those two with like Nitro and Ethan just being the glue and just so
Uh-huh.
consistently like helping out the team and being like the pillars of the team, if he wasn't with that 4-player roster that was insanely star-studded, I don't think Steel would have had that much success, and I don't think
No.
he's going to have as much success, even close, on tier 1.
I think T1's going to
Yeah,
have the same
I'm-
issue.
I agree.
T1. That's a
I
tier 1,
think
T1.
tier 1 T1. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
They're
They're
gonna
the
have the
actual
exact same
T1.
issue.
They're in tier 1
Hey.
for now.
For now, you know?
Nah, they're not. Bro, on God, they're not.
I think they're technically considered T1, but
The
they're
org
not-
is.
They're on the fence for sure.
And on a lot of teams, right? So many teams, and even to go to EG, not to be too savage, to be too harsh to a team that we've rubbed shoulders with at LAN, as we did have the opportunity to cast them.
Dude, they follow
but
me on Twitter.
yeah,
Come on, relax.
Bruce's mom follows me on Twitter, bro. She's actually really cool.
So does
She's
his
really-
dad. So
I've
like,
Yeah, his dad's cool.
Boost Joe's one, pretty cool indeed.
Sorry.
From that in the rumor mill, we've talked about 100 Thieves and kind of what's going on there, and we did mention it in passing. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you guys here. Completely, Skadoodle. Also, that T1 roster. There's some ins, there's some outs. There's that revolving door again. We spoke of it earlier on, and just like the show, it's coming back around. Where's Skadoodle going? Because the rumor mill is Skadoodle is going to be leaving T1. You've mentioned it already, Chad. He's been a bench warmer for goodness knows how long, and that's not a good
was
feeling
Cat.
for any player, is it?
That was Cat's point for
That
sure.
was Cat.
Hey,
Forgive me, I
thanks.
noticed
You know
one
what?
of
That's
In the
that's
green room.
real of you, man. That's some real shit
very
to
real,
say
bro.
that.
Gotcha.
Hey, thanks a lot,
No.
man.
Doesn't this all depend on what Steel says when he shows up? If
Which-
Steel shows up
Kind
and he's
of.
like, I want to work with Skadoodle, I
He
think they
stays.
listened to Steel because they just did. Likely T1 had to jump through some sort of hoop to sign Steel from 100 Thieves. This can be assumed.
Well,
These
I don't know if
details
anyone
were
else would
never
pick
made
him up.
Public.
I don't think.
Uh,
I don't know if anyone else would have
I think
taken
T1
him.
I
was
think they were
desperate.
one of the only teams that could, but I think a lot of
they were
people
the
would be
desperate
interested in
enough team
taking
to
up
pick 'em
Steel just for name
Yeah, that he's
recognition
Steel.
alone.
Yeah.
But that
I don't-
aside, now that I think Steel is showing up, I think Skadoodle's fate literally is in Steel's hands. But I want to say, I think his fate is in good hands from Skadoodle's point of view, because from my point of view, I don't see any reason for Steel to go to T1 and T1 be like, we're dropping Steel, or we're dropping Skadoodle, and for Steel to just be like, yeah, great, throw him to the wayside. I think Steel has a lot of respect, obviously, for Skadoodle as a player, as a person, has infinite experience with this
They've
guy.
scrimmed.
Uh,
Oh yeah, they go way back.
Yeah,
Alright, let me-
so much.
Go way back.
So I think Steel is gonna at least try to make it work with Skadoodle in some capacity. I don't think you see Skadoodle leaving T1 anytime soon with Steel showing up. Now, do Steel and Skadoodle actually is there friction there we don't know about? Because as you said, Steel's kind of hard to work with.
He is, and off of that hard to work with notion, Chad, you've got some to chuck in there as well. What's your take on it, right? You've mentioned it a little bit, but what do you think? Do you
I
think
know it's
Scooter
coming.
was staying? Is he going? Is he going to be just chilling and just watching him as an observer? What's happening?
I think it's gonna be a revolving door, brother. Like that you mentioned
There
earlier
it is.
of this tier 1 teams doing a revolving door, and T1, they already have an IGL in Thwifo, who is a former IGL of Xset, and left there, went to T1. Xset picked up Def instead. 100 Thieves was star-studded roster, on paper a great roster. They already had an IGL of Nitro, but then they brought in Steel, who then just took the reins, probably because he's so vocal that Nitro was like, screw it, dude,
Yeah.
whatever, you can do it. And
He
so
left the
Nitro's
game.
pretty laid back
Such a
dude.
bad taste
and
in his
then
mouth.
and then after that, Nitro was like, actually, you know what? This was all, I don't want to do this anymore.
This
But
is not my jam.
So T1, he's more of a well, never mind. So T1 has Swiper already, so it's already going to be on paper conflicting situation of IGLs. On paper, you have pretty good players, and also there's a rumor of T1 signing 7 from 100 Thieves' sub roster. So 7 would be like an Asuna, you know, and then T1 has like Skadoodle, who has experience of like Hiko, and then they have somebody who's already an IGL be competing with them, which would be like Thwifo.
Okay.
And then
I like
you go
that.
into a situation where we have like Automatic, who is a very talented player coming over from CSGO or whatever, and that's like Ethan is very talented. And you also have Curry on the roster still too, which who do they even play between Automatic and Curry if they're also bringing over 7? Like what's going on over there? So I think it's just going to be a similar situation in 100 Thieves, except I think overall on paper, it's not as good of a roster as 100 Thieves was. And I think Steel's just going to be very similar situation, just less success.
Yeah, let me hit with the different issue for Skadoodle. The fact that one, he wanted to play the game, and T1 said, okay, you're coming here, we're going to play you as a starter. He showed up, and he talked about this in an interview before. He said, I came to play the game, and they just threw me on the bench and like completely lied to me. So I know he doesn't like the organization. He did play before, if you remember, I Buy Power, the reason why
Back
all
in the
these
day.
guys are in Valorant in the first place,
Yeah.
with God Dazed, who T1 just picked up. So
Oh,
he
don't get me started. on that.
probably
I've got
wouldn't
some-
want to play with God Dazed after he
Get
was
started on it,
he was the one player. Skadoodle was the one player who was
Started.
like, I
Oh,
don't really
not
want
Dazed.
to do this. And they did it anyway. And you
Such
know
a
what I mean?
mistake.
Like, I feel like he probably isn't a fan of God Days. He's not a fan of the org. I just don't feel like he'd want to stay in the first place.
I agree with you on that one. And actually, Siri just said, I'm sorry. And I agree, Siri. I'm sorry that Daze was signed to T1. What a disappointment that was. I tell you something. I
Boomers,
used
man.
to watch. I
CS
used to
boomers.
watch him in CSGO, and to see come over to Val, to see the disappointment, the hype train just like fade out. Man.
I thought Jet was made for Skadoodle.
Dude,
for
it's
sure.
just a different game. Like, signing CS players is just always been an L. It's just a different game. It really
Always?
plays different. Okay, for the most
Oh.
part. For the most part, signing CS
Always?
players is an L because
Really?
it's just a different game.
Usually not.
I think
Mars?
everyone.
Hiko?
Shut up, bro.
How many? Well, hold on, hold on.
Shut
Hold on.
up, bro.
Signing famous CS:GO players is a mistake.
Yes,
Maybe
thank you.
everyone who is
Thank
on
you.
that Valorant stage has played CS:GO.
Yes,
very
this is
seriously
true.
at one
At
This
point.
is
least
true.
once,
This is
right?
true.
You can
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that. I'm sure.
Like,
you
well,
can say
most of the
that.
Sentinels roster
everyone.
has.
Played CS:GO.
Yeah, most of the Sentinels roster has, but
not professional.
Yeah.
Right. So there's so much going on in the T1, the T2 scene, and you know what? I think we should put a pin in it there because it's coming to a natural end. We're going back and forth, and hopefully you
Next
have
week there's
enjoyed
gonna be more.
all we've had to say. Oh yeah, there's gonna be plenty more coming. Just the pilot episode of Instalock Duelist, and let's all do an outro for ourselves as well here. That was the Rumor Rendezvous. We have been all over the T1 and T2. I'm Cuppa Frag. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast here, and everyone else, please do the justice. See yourself off, would you?
Yeah, I'm going to see myself off by saying that rumor of a Proto leaving Luminosity. I think just throw a shot at the dark that he goes 100 Thieves because they need a Sentinel. My name's also Chad Lannis, and I cast Valorant as well as other games, but Valorant is definitely hyped to be in. I love to be here and happy to be here on this podcast too.
Heck yeah. Cat,
Heck yeah.
please.
At Chad Lannis TV.
I'm candidate 3K. Please, until at least the new year, don't Reddit twit longer. I
don't.
just don't.
Oh,
I don't
please.
really care what it's about. Just no twit longers and for 2 weeks until the end of the year.
My
Just let
eyes
us have a
can't
happy
take
holiday,
anymore.
man. This is a lot.
Please,
I'm
just
sick of it.
have
It's the
some
morning
good
paper.
times. Just chill, man. It's all
Bro,
good.
I know you need to let it out. Just let
I'm
it out. in
Dilly
the new year.
G.
Text message.
January
I'm
1st.
Dilly G. I'm Dilly G. No more twit longers.
He's Dilly G.
Follow me on Twitter
He's
at
Dilly G.
DillyG101. All right, everyone's just gonna talk over my outro. Thanks. Bye.
Wow.
And that is Dilly G.
Dilly.
Chad,
Yeah, we'll
please.
see your
Can
twit
you-
longer about it, buddy.
Dilly, give me a second outro.
I will not.
That's the outro.
That's
And
your choice.
we'll see you next week.
It's all you, man. It's Lord Duelist. We'll catch you next week. Peace.